In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to create your own flower press in any custom size. So I do have a file available, and just to show you what's in it and what we will be making, I have 2 square presses, a variety of different styles of insert, and this is for cutting the cardboard. I have a circular press, and then I have a press that doesn't require a bolt and a wing nut. This one would be held together with rubber bands, or in my case, hair ties, because this is 4x6. So I'm going to show you how to create both the inserts as well as the press boards themselves. You can create this out of any 1/8 inch material or 1/4 inch material. I recommend doing 1/4 inch or a little thicker just because it looks a little heftier and it's nicer, but the 1/8 is definitely going to work. You do not need a super intense amount of pressure to press flowers, so you don't have to kind of go overboard on the heavy duty element of this. Now before I get to the actual making part, I'm just going to explain these inserts so that when we make them in the next step, you'll understand why I'm doing them the way I am. So I did make my inserts a little bit offset, so they're a little smaller than the covers. There's no reason that you have to do this other than I just like the aesthetic of it, and it protects the corners a little bit, I guess. You don't have to do that. You could easily just make one shape for your press and use that exact same shape to cut your cardboard inserts. So there's no need for that. I also have a hexagonal type, and the reason for this is that this is a little easier to cut by hand, so you could actually make one template and then use it to cut your paper or your cardboard inserts down. You'll see this one very commonly used in different presses because it's easier to cut the corners off by hand than try to drill holes. So this is a little simpler to make when you're not using a laser, but that's why I included both, just for the traditional look and then the basic shape option with the holes. So now that you've seen what I've already made, let's make a new press in a custom size. So you don't need this file, you can definitely just do this yourself. I've already created a 12x20 artboard to work with because that's the typical Glowforge interface upload size, and I've just gotten really used to working on that artboard size. Kind of gives me an idea of what I'll be able to fit in my laser bed. So first step is to come to our shape tool, and you can see it's trying to give me a little instruction tip there. Click and select rectangle tool if it's not already on the rectangle. Then click once on your artboard and input your size. So let's say I want to easily work with, for my paper inserts anyway, 8.5 by 11 inch paper. I don't want to have to really cut much other than cutting the corners off. So let's go with something like that. Now I'm going to make it a little bit bigger in this case because we don't really need the paper to go all the way to the edge. So let's go with 9 by 11.5, and that's going to give us a nice rectangle here. I'm going to rotate that sideways just so we can kind of see it a little bit better. So here's my rectangle. Just make sure that when it creates your shape, it doesn't have a fill. A lot of the time the shape tool will automatically create a white object with a black fill. We want to remove the fill by clicking this, because if we leave the fill, it will try to view it as an engraved step, at least in the Glowforge it does. I don't know if it does for all lasers, but we want to make sure we just have line work. Makes it a little easier. I'm then going to reselect my rectangle, and I would like to add rounded corners. I think it looks nice. I just like it. It's not a requirement. But if you want to add them, you can then click on your rectangle and you'll see these little circular nodes, and you just click and drag. And that's all you have to do to get a corner. You can decide how much you want to round it, and it's totally up to you. You'll also then see that setting pops up here, so you can actually input it to a very specific corner radius if you would like to. You can actually also individually round your corners differently by using the direct selection tool, selecting just one corner or 2 corners, and then clicking those same nodes and dragging them. So if you wanted to create a unique shape, that is something you could do. I'm happy with that. That works perfect for me. I'm going to leave it like this. My next step is to create the holes that I will need for my bolts to go through to tighten my press. So I'm going to click my shape tool again, select the ellipse tool, and click once. Now I'm going to input the size that's going to fit my bolts. And I know my bolts are 0.22 inches because I used calipers to check them. They're an M6 size. So I'm just going to create a 1/4 inch circle. And now we've got a nice 1/4 inch circle. So Now, when I align this, I want to make sure that I don't just kind of like put my circles all willy-nilly. I want to make sure they're evenly spaced from the corner so that no matter how I flip or rotate the front and the back boards, the bolts are still going to line up. Because if you have one over here, and now this is exaggerated, and then copy paste, oop, I didn't grab it, copy paste, and then you have one that's over here. Now that's very obvious, but if you try to then rotate the board or flip it, they're not going to line up. And even when it's just a little bit off, you're going to notice it. So let's start with this. I'm actually just going to bring it up into the corner, and you'll see it's going to try and sort of snap here or intersect. If you can get that to kind of snap into place, then you've got it in the spot you want. And then I'm going to click it, and I'm just going to hold my shift key and use my arrow key, and that will have it jump more than if you just click the arrow key. So let's go back. I'm going to hit shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to use my down arrow while still holding shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just, I know that's maybe not the perfect way to do something, but that's the method I often use for moving things around, is I just remember how many times I clicked it over, and then I'll repeat that step elsewhere. So I am going to grab my circle, copy and paste it, and then I'm going to do the same thing. So I just want to make sure I get that intersect just like it was, and then shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now that we have the top two, we can actually take a little shortcut and hit Command G to group them, and then copy and paste again. Or you can option drag, and then we can do the same thing. So I just need to make sure that these are lined up with these guys. So I have them here. I'm going to hold shift and drag them down, get them to land right about here. And this is not going to be correct, but I'm just going to show you what's going to happen. So I'm going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I want to check that they're aligned. I know they aren't because I actually had it sticking out a little bit past this. But let's group it, copy and paste, change the stroke color to something obvious just so we can see and I can illustrate that point of you want your circles to line up. And I'm going to rotate it around. Oh, and look, I made a liar out of myself. It actually was aligned. I thought because it was a little bit past that corner, it wasn't going to match up, but it did. So that's why we check. That'll help. But that just means that even if I flip it, whatever, I don't have to make sure that there's a perfect orientation here. My front and back covers are going to line up. On to the next step. So if you want to create an insert that is slightly offset in like I did, let's say you do want that, I'm going to show you how to do that here. So currently everything is grouped. I either need to right mouse click and ungroup it, or I can actually double click the object I want. It will enter isolation mode in the group, and now I can select just the rectangle. I can copy it, and then I'm going to hit Shift Command V to paste it exactly in place, and I'm going to change its color just so you can see that it is a different object than the object behind it. And now I'm going to select that pink rectangle again. I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and I'm going to create a negative offset. So I'm going to do negative 0.2, and then I'm going to take my joins and hit round. It doesn't really matter in this case. You're not going to probably see it. And I'm going to click OK. Now I can actually delete this outer rectangle. I just did that because if I had used this object with the group and offset it would have also offset these little circles and I would have had to delete them. So it seemed to be more sensible to me to just copy the rectangle and then use that. I'm also going to round these corners by once again with my arrow tool selecting these, and then I'm just going to kind of get them to match. That looks pretty close enough. And now I have my insert shape. Now, if I would like to have the holes for this inset shape, I'm going to need to copy them along with this shape. Alright, so the way to do that would be, in my case, I think the easiest way is going to actually be to ungroup this back shape, select my circles and my pink rectangle, and then let me zoom out a little bit. I can then option drag to copy these over, or I could hit Command C, Command V to copy and paste. I'm then going to grab both of these, change them to the same color. We'll just make them this other pink here. And then I can go back and delete this rectangle. So it's a little bit of kind of copying and pasting and sort of thinking about it, but this will ensure, I'm going to group that with Command G. This will make sure that it lines up and I can use this insert and the holes are going to line up while it's still offset. So it's just a simple way to kind of make sure it looks nice. It's going to line up, it's going to work. So we have our inner shape as well as our outer shape. We could also come back to our rectangle tool here, make another rectangle like this, and we could cut off the corners, or we could make this a little easier. So I could come in here with a line tool and cut the corners off. I could cut the rectangles out and cut them off by hand, but we can also go to our polygon tool, and then we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need an octagon, so we have 8 sides. We'll let the radius be what it is. I'm going to delete that, and now that I have the sides put in, so I clicked once, it allows me to change the sides, delete the shape, and now I can click and drag. Looks like it wants to do it from the center, and I can click and drag a shape that's pretty close to what we want. The next step would be to take the white arrow here, so that's the direct selection tool, and just drag things out, holding shift so I don't lose my place. And then I can actually click this corner, holding shift, and then I can do the same thing. I can use my arrow tool to scoot these up. And then I can do the same here. So I know that seems like that might go a little bit fast, but kind of get the idea is that you can really just manipulate the shapes until you get what you want. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that looks pretty good there. So that's how I made my offset, like my little corner cut shapes and my offset shape. You can do it however makes sense to you, but it's just the way I think in Illustrator. So I'm sure there's probably some smarter, simpler way, but that's how I did it. So now we have our inner shape and our outer cover shape, and from there there's not much else you really need to do. If we look back at our original file here, that's it. You just need those items. If you want to make the vent holes, I'm not sure how effective those actually are going to be or not, but you can easily use your Pathfinder to do so. So I'm going to create circle ones for this design. And let's say I want 4 across. I'm holding the Option key and dragging them out. And then I want to figure out how far out I want the 2 edges to go. So the farthest most 2. Grab all of them. Go to my Pathfinder tool, or my Align tool I should say, and then distribute the horizontal centers. It will evenly space them. You can also hit distribute spacing, and then holding, while they're all selected, holding Option, I'm going to drag them out, and you can see it's giving me a little guidance on spacing there. Now I'm just going to select the whole group, but not that rectangle, and then I will distribute the vertical centers, or evenly space the centers. No, it doesn't want to do it. Okay, if you find it does that, group your rows. That's usually probably the smarter way to do it. I was trying to see if it would let me do it without doing that, but nope, doesn't want to do it. So we're going to group our rows instead. Now grab all 4 and evenly space, and there we go. I'm going to group the whole group, and then I'm just going to find the center, and it will kind of guide me into where the center is. So you can see it's telling me that's the center, and it's lined up with the center. So there's my vent holes. You can make different shapes like I did. I made that little pill shape. It's kind of up to you. Then when you're finished, I'm just going to my artboard tool here, and I'm going to expand the artboard to fit everything. So yes, I did work in an artboard, and not all of these are going to be able to fit on the artboard at the same time. But when you save your file, you do want to make sure all of the art is on the artboard in some way, and that way you'll ensure that it's going to upload. So from there, I would just save as, And I prefer to work with PDFs because SVGs sometimes scale like awkwardly in Illustrator. But I have found that Illustrator did finally update this. If you want to save as an SVG, call this flower press, hit save. If you open your advanced options right here, you're going to see, so if you come in here and you hit more options, you can uncheck responsive, and that should fix scaling issues with it. So let's hope that works. I'm going to click OK, and then from there it would just be a matter of uploading and cutting. So some basic shape tool work. Hopefully that will help you out. You can make these in any shape you want, or you can purchase the file and have a little shortcut and it's all done for you. But either way, I hope you will enjoy the flower presses and enjoy the spring weather along with them.